I even saw headlines, is AEW going to put WWE out of business? I'm thinking, are you crazy?
Yeah.
That's ludicrous. That's not even remotely feasible. That's like saying the XFL is going to supplant the NFL as America's football league.
It's such a pleasure to sit down with you. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
Before you got hired by AEW, were you looking for to get back into the wrestling business or do this full time?
No, I was still in the wrestling business.
The New Japan?
WWE.
Yeah, okay.
My WWE contract ended at the end of March of this year. And then I knew I wasn't going to renew it because I was inactive. Players want to play.
Sure.
And so I wasn't being utilized. For example, in 2018, I worked twice. I went to Saudi Arabia for about 8 hours, and I went to New York City to do Raw 25. So I wasn't being utilized, and the handwriting was on the wall that apparently some of the powers that be there perceived I was too old or I couldn't get my job done any longer. So I knew that I didn't have a home there in that respect. Mm-hmm. And I'm not the kind of guy that's, okay, I'll sit home and take my money. That's just not my style. That's just the next step of, that's the aging process or getting out of the game process. And that's just not me. So I wasn't looking, but, I met Tony Khan a couple of years ago. So we had a good relationship already established, but I didn't have any idea at that time when we met in Long Beach. He came out with the New Japan shows. He and Alex Marvez that we would be working together. So it just worked out. Fate was a good thing for me. I say that Tony Khan saved my wrestling life, and I believe that because I got back in the game and doing what I love to do. And so that's kind of the thing in a nutshell. But there's a lot of side stories to all that stuff.
Sure.
But it's been a good blessing for me, quite frankly.
Do you feel like your announcing style is different now that you're in AEW?
Well, announcing style should always be predicated by the product you see on the monitor. So I'm gonna announce in the most realistic way that I can to help to suspend disbelief as best I can, no matter who I'm working for or working with. Some products are just more conducive to a sports-oriented, not sports entertainment-oriented entity. So that's kind of, I don't think I'm going to change a lot. The orders from headquarters there with Tony Khan and his group they want an athletic presentation. So, there's two sides to that issue. I love that concept. Let's go an athletic presentation. But I got to have a canvas. You got to have, that's what you're going to be seeing in the ring is athletic competition.
Right.
And so it's a two-way street, but nonetheless, my style's not going to change a hell of a lot. It probably, as a matter of fact, it might be a little bit retro in some areas. But the pace, the tenor, the feel, that doesn't go away. That doesn't change.
But a lot of what's going on in WWE is they're not even calling what's in the ring. They're not calling what's on the monitor.
I think it's a real tune-out for the viewer that if you're seeing action, you're seeing movement, and your eyes are watching this movement and your brain is processing what you're seeing, then it becomes a massive disconnect when the announcers are telling backstory while action is ongoing.
Yeah.
That'd be nothing different than Joe Buck on Fox Sports talking about a backstory or what round a guy got drafted in or what his birthday is or how many brothers and sisters he has while the ball's in play.
Yeah.
It's so ludicrous to even say that because that would never happen.
Yeah.
But why have we allowed that to happen in wrestling is beyond me. The words have got to support the audio. The audio's got to support the video, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And sometimes in TV wrestling, in a lot of companies, that doesn't happen. So it's not I don't think it's a good thing. It's a bad trend,
sure.
I believe, quite frankly.
Did you need to reach out to WWE when your contract was done and say, I just want to let you guys know I'm planning to go to AEW?
Well, I did. I didn't know where I was going.
Okay.
I knew I wasn't going to return.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to have another year of inactivity. At my age, these are moments that are fleeting. In my view, without sounding, too melancholy, I just felt like that I had to find other things to do. And I had, podcasting's a big thing. I'm writing a second book. I'm I'm a member now of the signed a contract recently with the Simon & Schuster's Speakers Bureau.
Wow.
So I had plenty of things on the table to do.
Sure.
But the wrestling part of getting back in a wrestling company was not really a high priority. I thought my wrestling ship had sailed, unfortunately, and I wasn't happy about it. But what else was I going to go do, right? And then Tony Khan and AEW came along, and that's been a blessing because now I'm back in the hunt, as I said, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
And I get a chance to contribute. I get a chance to play it forward for some of these young kids who, when I get to the arena, anytime we do TV, I feel like Morgan Freeman in Shawshank Redemption, teaching Andy how to get out of prison. But these kids they're dying for information.
Sure.
And because I had some luck was recruiting some good talent, good guys, they want to know what traits I saw sometimes, or what made you like The Rock the first time you met him, or whatever. So it's just it's a fun thing. It's like coaching. I like coaching. That's probably what I would have done if I had not got into broadcasting in the wrestling business.
With helping out this young talent, you were the guy who came up with these amazing nicknames that really helped talent get over.
Yeah, lucky.
The Bionic Redneck, the Game, or what are some of your other favorites?
Oh, gosh,
the Texas Rattlesnake.
Oh yeah, I did Austin's podcast this week.
Yeah.
I did Austin's podcast.
It aired this week. Yeah.
It aired this week,
Yeah.
and he said, I got to thank you for Texas Rattlesnake. I said, you did sell a lot of shirts for that one, didn't you? He said, yeah, quite a few. So it's good. The great one was the name that Rock thought about, and I threw it out there, and it worked.
Did he got approval though? I think from Muhammad Ali or Muhammad Ali's family, didn't he?
The great one was Gretzky.
Oh, that's right.
And the Muhammad Ali was everybody's. No athlete that I've ever met was not in awe of Muhammad Ali.
Sure.
Quite frankly. So, and I had my experience with him, so it was all great. I spent 3 days with him one time in New Orleans.
Wow.
We shared a suite. And he came down for a Mid-South wrestling event down in the Superdome. So we got to be buddies, and to the extent you can be buddies with a guy like that. He's a legend. It's hard to believe you're talking to him sometimes. It's pretty cool. So
I don't feel like in the era of WWE right now you could just throw out a nickname without someone's approval.
Oh, and you couldn't.
Yeah.
A lot of my stuff is very organic.
Yeah.
And feel. The Texas Rattlesnake was. I said later on that rattlesnakes don't make good corporate pets, and things like that. It's a feel deal. Steve asked me about that. I didn't write anything down to say because that's like the wrestlers today spending endless hours seemingly on going over a 5-minute match or an 8-minute match or a 10-minute match or whatever a match. Mm-hmm. It's that memorization of your act, not knowing that what you're committing to memory, by the way, may not work. If that doesn't work and get the crowd flipped, then what do? Well, you got to go to plan B. Yeah. So then the question is, do you have a plan B?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I think about that deal. It's got to be a feel thing for me. And, I felt I got in my rhythm, my best rhythm with this company, I think, in the middle of the All In Vegas this year.
Because Double or Nothing. Yeah.
Double or Nothing. I'm sorry. Double or Nothing. Yeah. And because we had the Cody match and Dustin match, which is off the charts. It might have been a little graphic to some people, could be, but nonetheless, it was an amazing performance.
Yeah, told a great story.
Yeah, and then you have the two of the best tag teams in the entire world, and arguably the best tag team in the world, the Young Bucks, and the Lucha Brothers. They have great chemistry. It's almost seamless. It's a little bit like watching Flair and Steamboat. There's no scenes. It's just a continual smooth flow that's so real, and you get lost in the story. And then we close the show with Jericho and Omega, which was amazing. And then you have John Moxley sauntering in, and I didn't even know John Moxley was even in the building.
No,
I swear to God. So when he came out, it was like one of those real cool moments for a guy in my role that you can really get into something because you have not preconditioned yourself. Okay, now how am I going to act when John Moxley comes out? What am I going to say? What am I going to do? All that time is wasted time because you're going to do what, at least I'm going to do what it feels right. without sounding arrogant. It's a moment. I'm a fan. I'm still a fan. So as long as I'm still a fan, I can retrieve that emotion. Then we're good to go. So
Well, that's why they hired you.
well, I hope. They got, for some reason, maybe they had to fulfill their AARP commitments. I'm not real sure, but nonetheless, I'm sure as hell glad they did.
Do you not know the finishes to matches?
Sometimes I hear them in passing in a conversation, but everybody there knows, including Cody, who normally I meet with every hour and a half, 2 hours before every show during the week. He knows I don't want to know him.
Wow.
Because I'd rather react organically. I'd rather react in a real way. And that might not be the way you want to do it with some broadcasters who have less experience. You may not trust their judgment. Pardon me. You may not trust their judgment yet. Mm-hmm. And I think in my situation, at least you could trust me.
Well, I would think so, with
so.
45 years experience.
Yeah, really, isn't that right?
There was all these stories in WWE of Vince being in your ear or someone being in your ear, commentators' ears, telling you guys what to say. Mm-hmm. Who's in your ear in AEW?
Nobody.
At all?
No. Keith Mitchell is in my ear to count me in and out of the segment.
Sure, that's pretty common in TV.
Normal stuff.
Yeah.
And after that, if he has a suggestion, can you mention Chicago? Mention Memorial or Labor Day weekend. Mention something. He may do that, but that's how quick it is. Mention Chicago, but hardly nothing. And it allows us. I told these other guys this. You guys have not worked in a system as have I, where your alpha male in your life is telling you what to say, and sometimes. We all make mistakes in judgment, but I don't work well that way. I can't be creative and enlighten and intrigue and add all the things you want to add if you're yelling at me. Because now I got to process this information. Do I process this most powerful man in my business life and maybe my personal life yelling and screaming at me on occasion? Does it take you out of your game? Of course it does.
Yeah.
And I know Taz didn't like it, and Mick Foley didn't like it, and they couldn't handle it. This wasn't for them, and I can understand that. I just grew up with a father that was much like Vince, very demanding, very alpha male-ish. Then I worked for Cowboy Bill Watts, who may be the most alpha male of the whole damn crew. 6'3", 300 pounds, and he was an accomplished street fighter. He liked to push it. He's a bully. And then when I got to Vince, going through Dusty, who was really easy to work with, and Ole Anderson, who wasn't, by the time I got to Vince, I was battle-tested, man. You can't say much that's going to piss me off. It'll piss me off a little bit, but nonetheless, it's not going to affect my work. We did a show one time where, I can't remember where it was on Raw. Lawler and I were out there broadcasting, and Vince says to me to say something, and it was ridiculous, and I didn't say it. And during the time he told me to say it, and I was holding out on him, he was screaming like crazy.
And you're still trying to call the match.
Oh yeah, I'm on live television,
yeah.
At least in my ear. God damn it, I said this. Okay, all right. So bottom line is I didn't say it. And then we go to commercial break, and he comes on my headset, and in real hushed tones, like he's doing golf. Hey JR, yeah. Did you hear me to tell you to say it? Yes, sir. Well, it's a goddamn good thing he didn't, because it had been wrong.
Wow.
Well, I knew it had been wrong. We already talked about this. He forgot we already talked about this matter, and we weren't going to go there.
Yeah.
But he'd forgotten because all the hubbub and the traffic around him. He's like the honey, and a lot of the guys that work there are the bees. Mm-hmm. They swarm him because they want to be seen.
Sure. They
want FaceTime with the chief. So I didn't say it, and we laughed about it after the show. I tell him you're slipping, and you forgot this and that. But our relationship was much better than people perceive it to be. I didn't like some of his taste and creative that affected me. To be honest with you, there's some of it that I thought was a waste of time, and I didn't care to be involved in skits and get beat up. It wasn't getting beat up part. I Well, would you have liked it if you were winning? Well, no, I wouldn't like it
You
then
just
either.
didn't want to be doing it.
I'm not good at it.
Like when you were in the Kiss My Ass Club, the look on your face told the whole story.
Well, it got over. It was disgusting.
It got over.
It was disgusting. It was a heel move. It was disgusting. Of course, the strategic thing for Vince was he picked Oklahoma City, where my family was there in attendance, not having any idea that tonight Dad's going to kiss Mr. McMahon's ass.
Yeah.
And his face is going to be driven into his glutes. So, but I saw some of those opportunities I just didn't like. And a lot of that is ego-driven, to be honest with you. I thought that, we were getting beyond that, and who are we getting over? Mm-hmm. So I remember I got beat up, I got nailed by the Undertaker. That's cool. Kurt Angle did something to me. Vince, I kissed his ass. Bischoff broke a cinder block over my head. I had to put Michael Cole over. I can't remember. I know Jack Swagger got me the ankle lock. Got a little carried away.
It's like they would pick on you for easy heat.
Well, I was over.
Yeah, well, of course.
They're
always over.
That's the deal. And without sounding egocentric, the character JR was over to the audience. So a villain, a heel, doing something nefarious to JR was not going to be well accepted.
Yeah.
Which is the exact emotion you want to solicit from a villain.
Yeah.
But my deal was, and I tell creative this, that, you guys spend so much time trying to figure out what Vince is going to like so you can write something he likes, and he likes bathroom humor, and he likes JR being made a fool of or utilized these storylines. If you had your head out of your ass, which they told me I have my head in my ass in a Dr. Heine skit, you would have talent that were over. You would have talents that were over on their own that didn't need me to be their rub.
Yeah.
And it's a fragile dynamic when your TV announcer is one of the key components to give heels a rub.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. So I didn't feel like we were helping the other talents. All those guys and gals sitting in the back, they weren't doing a damn thing. They're going to go on the road and try to sell tickets, make more money, provide for their families, all the good stuff that we talk about. They're sitting there, and my fat ass is in the ring. It made no sense to me.
Yeah.
I didn't need the ego rush. I didn't need the love. I didn't need the rub. I didn't need any of that.
Yeah.
But let me sit there and describe it and be your soundtrack. And so that was my disconnect there.
So are you saying that you don't want to be part of storylines in AEW?
No, I don't. I have no. I'm going to do some interviews.
Sure.
Some sit downs, which I love doing, and it'll help get the talent over. I think.
Like the Sean Spears interview.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. And there'll be more coming down the road, but I don't have any desire at this stage. There's no reason for it. Where do you go with it? Mm-hmm. What do you do with it? Every angle on television has got to lead to something.
Yeah.
My angle with me involved isn't leading to anything.
Yeah.
We're not going to have a match.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. And it's not. I'm 67 years old. I kind of done this stuff.
Sure.
So let somebody else do it.
So with all that said, you said you still have a whole bunch more wrestling left in you. How long do you think you can do this for?
Oh, I can do this for. I follow the principles of the great broadcasters that, Keith Jackson became a friend of mine, and he worked until he called his shots. He got out when he wanted to get out. Mm-hmm. Somebody asked me this question the other day. I said, "What are you going to do when your 3-year contract's up? You'll be 70." I said, "Well, if I'm smart, I'm going to try to get a renewal. I'm going to try to keep working." In my role, as long as I can continue to recognize situations and scenarios through my experience, I know the game. It's like being the skinniest kid at fat camp. I know the game of pro wrestling.
Yeah. And
so I hope I can contribute for years to come, because I'm not buying into, well, you got to retire. It used to be the old days where you get your Social Security at 62, or you could get Medicare at 65.
Yeah.
And all of them's terrible. Really, there's no great reward to draw your Social Security in our country these days. The government's done a real good job of screwing up the common guy's living and existence. maybe the good thing about that is that people like you are becoming entrepreneurs and going out on their own and doing their stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we are right now in this country. So I like that, quite frankly, Chris. But golly, it's challenging. So my goal is to do a good enough job in the next 3 years, and see this company grow from a franchise or I guess you would say a expansion team to a Super Bowl contender. But the issue that a lot of folks are saying, are you going to put, I even saw headlines, is AEW going to put WWE out of business? I'm thinking, are you crazy?
Yeah.
That's ludicrous. That's not even remotely feasible. That's like saying the XFL is going to supplant the NFL as America's Football League. They're not, but they don't have to make a profit.
Sure.
The AEW brand doesn't have to do anything with WWE, be affected by it one way or the other. All we got to worry about is ourselves.
Yeah.
We got to get better. We got to get better at everything we do, and that has nothing to do with paying attention to what the other guys across the street are doing with the big yard and the big dog.
Yeah, well, I think people don't realize that you can be fans of both. Mm-hmm. We could watch Raw, and then we can watch AEW, and we can watch SmackDown and enjoy it all.
I agree. Yeah.
And I think people seem to think like you're either with us or you're against us.
Yeah, no, it's silly. Wrestling fans should band together and promote wrestling, because for years we've all had this uphill pull of being a wrestling fan. Oh, you watch that stuff? Yeah. When I was a little kid, I got teased about it all the time.
Of course.
Now, luckily, I was a decent athlete, and I was a bigger kid than a lot of my buddies at small Oklahoma high school. So a lot of them give me a pass because I was on the football team, the basketball team, president of the student body, blah, blah, blah. So they accepted me because I wasn't a nerd, but because they looked at wrestling as being a product for people with too much time on their hands, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And so I got a pass on that. But I've had anybody that's watching wrestling have ever watched wrestling, and their family. Sometimes our families are the ones that are the worst, because my dad would say, "Why do you watch that stuff?"
Oh, my parents said the same thing.
I think everybody's parents said the same thing. But so the deal is, but what's it hurting? I also watch John Wayne movies, knowing he's not a real cowboy. I really do. But I get lost in the character of his presentation.
Yeah.
Wrestling's not doesn't drive you to drinking. It doesn't drive you to drugs. It doesn't make you be a abuser.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It's a fictional entity, not unlike any other television episodic fictional show. It's just that these guys are real athletes.
Yeah.
They do their own stunts, and they have no off season.
Yeah.
There's a lot of amazing things that these gentlemen and ladies do that makes me proud to still be affiliated with it. So it's a labor of love for me, Chris, quite frankly.
I think people will think your most famous call is Mick Foley going off the cell, but what's your favorite call?
Well, it'd be hard to say. That's like saying, akin to saying, what's your daughters or your favorite, the older one or the younger one? And,
do you have maybe a few?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Sure. There's matches. There's matches that I called trying to think. There was a match back at WCW, Dr. Death and Terry Gordy against the Steiners. I thought was amazing, and I love that match. Hard hitting, logical, mano a mano. The guys knew that they were in for an interesting night, and they look forward to that, because most tag teams that dealt with Doc and Gordy and the Steiners always had the reservations that they're going to work very firm, very stiff, and be very physical, and this is not going to be an easy night at the office. And so that's kind of what we saw with that deal.
Yeah.
I love that one. I loved WrestleMania 13, Austin and Brett.
Yeah.
I thought was outstanding. Still do. I love that one. There was a Shawn. When Shawn came back from his hiatus, we finally convinced him to come back, and I wanted him to come back in the locker room and be a role model, even if he didn't want to wrestle, because we were paying him a lot of money at that time. I think it's $750 a year, and he was healing from his back injury and his ruffle feathers and all kinds of things. So that was Shawn, and when Shawn came back, it was amazing to me that he didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
He had a bad haircut. I remember that.
I remember that
A Dutch
too.
boy looking haircut or whatever the hell it was. But he showed his greatness.
Yeah.
He didn't miss a beat. And he and Hunter had an amazing match. I thought it was one of my favorite matches to call. The Foley Undertaker match was another one I didn't know the finish. I had no idea he was going to be thrown off the cell.
What if he landed on you?
I don't know. But what if he died? That's another thing. And so it wasn't good. It was the WWE, and we all dodged a bullet that night. If somebody had asked me before the show, if this is your call, would you approve this deal for Mick? And I would say no.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see any margin for error.
Yeah.
There's no precedent for this move. And you got a table, and then the floor, the concrete floor, is what breaks your fall.
Yeah.
It's a pretty sudden stop.
Yeah.
So that was another one that was a good, that was memorable. Obviously, we had to change. Lawler and I changed on the fly with our psychology when Rock and Hogan fought at WrestleMania 18.
That's my favorite match of all time.
Yeah.
I was there, and your call on it.
Oh, good.
I loved it because it was so evident that the crowd had turned on Rock and were cheering Hogan.
Yeah.
When they were exchanging blows, and it's boos for The Rock and cheers for Hogan.
Yeah, it takes you out of your game, too, because that's not the road you were traveling.
Yeah.
As a broadcaster. And so we called an audible and went right on about our business seamlessly.
Yeah.
And it was really an amazing experience. So I also thought that the Undertaker-Shawn Michaels match at the first Hell in a Cell they had was really terrific and memorable. It's funny how a lot of these gimmick matches, they call them, are being utilized, but the wrinkles added to them are limited.
Yeah. So
what I'm saying basically is you go back and go all the way back to the first Hell in a Cell. It's hard to say that any other Hell in a Cell was better than the first one. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's because it was new. I don't know, but also it's because you had two Hall of Fame guys in there doing their thing. So I think that some of these we needed some freshening up, quite frankly. But I enjoyed all those matches.
Yeah.
The Attitude Era was amazing too, because we had a lot of real good talents that a lot of them I'd recruited. And, we had that one class. I love to talk about this class because it's like a Hall of Fame class that we signed in one class. John Cena, we signed Randy Orton, we signed this guy, big old country boy from South Dakota named Brock Lesnar. We signed Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
He's now a major movie star. God bless him. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
And the best athlete of the group was Shelton Benjamin.
Wow. Yeah. What a group.
So that was the deal. And they all got to work. They all were on the ring crew. Brock Lesnar became the foreman of the ring crew because he could drive a pickup truck better than anybody else.
I don't think people can picture Brock Lesnar building a ring.
No, he did.
Wow.
Oh yeah. They all did. And they swept. They cleaned up. They paid their dues. And not that they weren't being hazed. These are chores that we had to do that we didn't have the budget to hire a janitor.
Yeah.
So you guys are going to do this.
Yeah.
And if the collaborative effort, you're going to be out of here in no time.
Yeah.
And they were.
Yeah.
But it gave them some responsibility. Let them know that this is still a free ride. You're not on scholarship here. And Lesnar's I paid Lesnar more money than any rookie that we ever signed. And because if anybody could see, he was obviously can't miss.
Sure.
One of those guys. Unless he imploded, we weren't going to have any issues with him getting over.
Oh, yeah.
Unless he just was if his social skills were not evolved to some degree where he could get along with people, and that was an issue. He didn't like traveling. So I used to talk about, you got to trade. There's a trade-off here, pal. We can get your ass on the farm, and you can farm all the rest of your life, but you're not going to make this kind of money.
Yeah.
If you want this kind of money, there's got to be some sacrifices made along the way, including time invested.
When I tweeted out that I was going to be interviewing you, I got a barrage of "by gods." How do you feel that that's like always going to be attached to your name?
It's all right. Something.
Yeah.
It's something to, it's either that or Slobberknocker or, you got beat like a government mule or a restaurant quality ass whipping, all that stuff, that was my.
Tougher than a $2 steak.
$2, yeah, tougher than a $2 steak. So, and I'll say I used to say that on TV toward the end of my run when these little gifts are coming out.
Yeah.
And there's I get all kinds of little ugly steak pictures and gifts and burnt and charred and little thin ones and big old thick ones or whatever. So it's people enjoy that. And one of my best-selling T-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com is They Killed Him.
Yes.
On that Mick Foley shirt. I got a buddy of mine, Orlando Brown, plays right tackle for the Baltimore Ravens. He's right or left tackle. He's a starter. OU kid, great kid. And Orlando wears that T-shirt under his pads during the games.
Wow.
They killed him. That's his mindset. He was a killer. He's an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
You're not going to get my quarterback, no matter what happens. So those are fun. Those are fun deals. But the Slobberknocker is probably the most.
Of course.
That's probably the most. Whatever. It's
What?
most prominent.
Where did you come up with that?
It's an old Southern football term that was applicable, and when the games were covered by the newspaper, it was a print game before radio got even big time, and these players didn't wear face masks on their helmets, so their faces were unprotected, and slobber was the liquid spittle. So if you got hit in the face hard enough, there it would go. The spittle would fly.
Wow.
So Slobberknocker, and that's where. So that it's just an old term. This, I heard this when I was in junior high. You guys ready for this week? It's going to be a Slobberknocker. And I don't know what the hell is that. What does that mean? So I figured it out.
Yeah.
And started to. Then when I got broadcasting, I started using it, and also all those things just became my little handles. It made me different.
Yeah.
And to my different, being different was a blessing and a curse. I always thought that my accent cut me from the herd. I sounded different. When I got the Bell's palsy, which people can see, I can't smile, and I can't whistle because I can't pucker. And that was a blessing, because in some ways, because it made me. It even gave my diction a little bit more of a uniqueness. But for television executives, it wasn't my friend. The fact that I'm a round-faced guy, chubby guy with Southern accent, can't smile. He doesn't belong on television. Says who? Says you. Says somebody that is looking at You're not looking at a focus group, because there's no focus group in the country is going to say that JR doesn't belong in the wrestling business.
Of course.
It's just not going to happen. That sounds egocentric for me to say, but that's just
a damn fact.
Our fans are that way.
Yeah.
They give a damn. They care. We did a show here in Jacksonville, and I got another one coming up in Philadelphia, Rochester. We're going to book a lot of these little Q&As.
These are the live podcasts.
I love them.
JR.
Yeah. Grill and JR. And
what's the one question people always want to ask you when you do that?
Like you did, what's my favorite match?
Yeah.
Or who's your favorite wrestler? Sometimes they ask more profound questions. I enjoy getting into, like we just had a podcast regarding Vengeance 04, the pay-per-view Vengeance 2004. And that was a big, big show for Chris Benoit. And most people in the last few years have been reluctant to even mention his name because of how he lived the last 48 hours of his life. And I'm not underscoring that as something beautiful. It's not. It's horrible. Worst thing I've ever encountered in my career, other than Owen Hart dying in front of my very eyes in front of me, was the Chris Benoit thing, because I just never saw that coming. I consider him a good friend, and I helped him with his neck injury, and we got into great surgery, paid him while he was off, took care of his needs, his family's needs. He got all his money, even though he couldn't work. It's the right thing to do for us, and we did the right thing. And so then I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was CTE. There's a million stories.
Sure. Yeah, we'll never know.
We're not going to know. All we know is that my friend Nancy, his wife, is dead. The little boy Daniel's dead. And then Chris, of course, committed suicide.
Yeah.
And to have him to even remotely think of a father murdering his son, it's bad enough to think of a husband murdering his wife. That's bad enough, obviously. But to take the life of your only son, your little son, with this lady, it was just unfathomable. I couldn't get my head around it. So we talked about that, and that was a good show.
Yeah.
But the questions that back to your question, I have somebody will ask about every other show at least, should Chris Benoit belong in the Hall of Fame? And I say no. Because, and if he were here, he would say no. And here's why. The reason why is because Chris Benoit going to the Hall of Fame would be a major, major distraction.
Yes.
It would not be about the great matches he had in Japan or Mexico or in Calgary or in WWE or WCW or anywhere else. It would be about murder-suicide. Mm-hmm. So that becomes the focal point again. And I just don't think that he would. And I know, I believe Chris, if I could talk to him right now, he'd say, JR, you're right.
Yeah.
I don't call. He was that kind of guy.
Yeah.
We don't know what set him off that day, but that was 2 days in the life of a guy that's 40-something years old. Mm-hmm. It's just not his demeanor.
Yeah.
We don't know why he did it, but we talked about that, and so the Benoit question comes up every now and then in various forms. But there's just the audiences are so smart, they're so in tune that their questions have become better and better as these shows go on, because there's so much more information flow. There's content like you're creating. There's all these guys, the Meltzers and the Kellers and all these guys got their businesses where they cover wrestling, and Mike Johnson at Pro Wrestling Insider does a great job. Jason Powell. There's all these guys do really good stuff. So now the fans have more content to sample.
Yeah.
So you can take a flight and you can be on, if you got Wi-Fi, you can catch up with all the wrestling business.
Yep.
On a decent flight, right?
Yeah, they do it all the time.
Yeah, me too. So, and you can follow your Twitter, your social media stuff.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's a big deal. I saw you were getting questions about this discussion.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about it too. What are people going to ask? What are new questions I haven't had yet? So.
Yeah. Well, in your backstage role as a senior advisor, are you still scouting talent for AEW?
I make recommendations. I see talents that I've become inquisitive of.
Okay.
And I make suggestions to Cody and his team about talents. There's talents I like that I would like to see work there, and not just because I perceive them being good in-ring performers, but the fact that they're going to enter the locker room with no poison.
Sure. That's important.
That's one of the reasons I worked so hard to hire Mick Foley, is I knew that when Mick Foley got in, he'd be a positive influence to our locker room. He'd be a good role model. He's not a drug guy. He wasn't a drunk. He abuses. The only thing he ever abused is his own body, those bumps he took. But you get a guy like that in, he's patient enough to take time with the younger guys who've seen him on TV and think, and they look up to him, or as they should. And so he was the kind of guy that could come in there and contribute to that locker room morale. But that's, to me, is a big component here. I don't care how many you can do, how much high flying you can do, and you can do a 450, and you can do this, and you can do that. But can you work? Can you perform? Can you make me want to watch you more, other than those indiscriminate moments on the high trapeze, flying trapeze, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that there's guys that I'd like to see here because, A, they're great athletes and they can perform, but also because they'll fit very much compatibly into our locker room community, which has a lot of diverse personalities in it, a lot of young guys. I was talking to Joey Janela. He came to be on our show on Friday night here in Jacksonville, and I didn't realize he'd been in the Indies for 14 years.
Yeah.
14 years. It's a testament to him, how dedicated he is and how much he loves wrestling.
Do you think he's one of the breakout stars of AEW?
He could be.
Who do you think, who's on your radar as being a breakout star?
MJF, probably top of the list.
Yes. People are familiar with the interview I did with him. He's quite the character.
Yeah. He loves it. He loves being a villain.
Yeah.
And he's sharp-witted, and he's a tough little guy too. I said this on the air a couple of weeks ago in Daytona, that he reminded me of a young Paul Heyman. And I worked with young Paul Heyman. I gave young Paul Heyman his break to get him on national television as my broadcast partner. And the WCW booking committee thought I was crazy, but they were celebrating because I took him off their hands. They no longer had to book him or manage him. He'll be my guy. And I don't regret that whatsoever. He was a great partner, and he's still doing good now in his new role.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works out.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time, so I have just one more question for you as we wrap things up. If someone comes to you and says, I want to do what you're doing, I want to have the career that Jim Ross had, what's the advice you have for an up-and-coming play-by-play commentator?
Practice, get reps, get a microphone in your hand or a headset on your head, volunteer. Don't look at these broadcasting gigs as paydays, because there's likely not going to be any paydays in them to any degree, maybe lunch. I told someone we ran Fort Smith, Arkansas every Wednesday night at the Jimmy Lott Sports Arena on Towson Avenue. I did enough promos for that to remember that the rest of my life. But I was refereeing down there. House is really bad. And the other town on Wednesday night was Baton Rouge. So Baton Rouge got the big stars, and Fort Smith got the leftovers. And I got paid that night in hot dogs. I got 2 hot dogs.
2 of them?
I refereed I was the only referee there. Helped put the ring up, take the ring down, paid my dues, and I got 2 hot dogs. And so then I said, well, could I get a Coke? And he said, yeah, that would be 50 cents. So I would have lost 50 cents in my pay that night by buying a Coke. And on the principle of things, I said, hell with that. I'll find something else.
I had a friend of mine that sent you some stuff and asked for some advice. And I'll never forget this as a fan. You said to him, make sure every near fall counts.
Yeah.
And I will never forget that now when I watch matches. You'll interrupt whatever you're saying to go, oh, in a near fall. Oh, he almost got him there.
Oh, you don't know that's going to be the it.
Right. And I love that.
Yeah. And a lot of guys, that's the story we talked earlier about announcers doing backstory.
Yeah.
While action's ongoing.
Yeah.
That Joe Buck illustration earlier.
Yeah.
You hear it all the time, backstory. And in a WWE's case, it's not working. It's great that I understand that they've got all this money, and it's great. I'm happy for them. The better WWE does, the trickle-down theory will make it mean better results for all of us.
Yeah.
And when Andre and Hogan fought in WrestleMania 3, the Mid-South business picked up because the awareness of the product became paramount. Every local network affiliate wanted to do a wrestling story, especially the NBC affiliates, because NBC was so gangbusters on promoting Saturday Night's Main Event and wrestling in general, and WWE wrestling. So we just tagged along. And it worked. We had one of our better years because of the success WWE was having. It's a trend. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So wrestling was trending thanks to WWE's promotional machine and what they have booked with Andre and Hogan. The fact they're going to run a huge stadium at WrestleMania 3, all these firsts, and it became a topic of discussion. And so we took advantage of that. So all of a sudden now we got all of our guys on all of our local TVs in Mid-South doing interviews and showing their personality. And so all of a sudden then I started getting more personal appearances for them. And all of these things just started coming about. And our business picked up. Then you would have radio stations contact us and say, hey, we'd like to do a promotion with you for the live event. Well, of course.
Yeah.
So it helped us. So the better WWE does, and I hope they do great, I hope they have record years, the better all the rest of us that are in the wrestling business will do. It's important that I, in my role, what WWE does or does not do, what they say or they don't say, is irrelevant to me. In the standpoint that I'm not going to mention it on the air anyway. I'm not going to mention WWE on the air in a negative way, a positive way, no way. No reason to.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think we should engage in that stuff. There's every now and then you'll get a little banner, little hand grenade here and there. Guys just can't resist themselves.
Sure.
But it's a wasted effort. We need to focus. We in AWE need to focus on what AWE is doing. nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah.
That should be our entire focus to make this brand great as we can. Some of these young kids are going to be there, Chris, and they're going to be good. But we don't know how good they're going to be. And they don't know how good they're going to be. And matches like a show in Jacksonville, the one in Daytona, are important measuring sticks to see what some of these guys have got.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to see our heel and babyface roster starting to slowly evolve. And once we get the right jersey on everybody, it'll be a lot easier to watch because you know who you want to cheer or don't, do or don't. And everybody has a role. You got to have a role. It's like my broadcast team with Excalibur and Alex Marvez. Alex is the Jay Glazer kind of guy, giving you information, the backstory of things along those lines. And Excalibur is a very brilliant wrestling mind. He does a great job. I really enjoy.
Sounds great too.
Oh yeah, he sounds terrific. So he's our wrestling expert because he was a former wrestler.
Sure.
So he'll be talking strategy and holes and how this works and things of that nature. And then I'm going to do what I do. So if we can all find our role and stay in our lane, so to speak, we're going to get better. Our goal is to be point on in Chicago at August 31st, and then take that momentum right into October when we premiere on TNT, and that's a difference maker.
Yeah,
that's the deal where nobody's really talking about it. They're talking about senseless things like you're going to put WWE out of business stuff. It's so stupid. I'm embarrassed when people say that. And I've been interviewed by guys that said, how much of a dent you think you put in their business? Not a damn bit.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? You think the XFL team in Dallas, coached by my friend Bob Stoops, is going to put a dent in the NFL? Not one bit. But he doesn't have to. That's not his job.
Yeah.
His job is to make his team competitive and entertaining and sell tickets and get TV ratings. So it's not a hard formula.
Well, once again, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have a heart out. Thank you for
You're
this.
welcome, sure.
On behalf of wrestling fans everywhere, thank you for the memories over the years. You're the soundtrack to my childhood, and now you're the soundtrack to whatever age I am now. So,
yeah, well, appreciate it. Thanks for being a good listener today. I had too much coffee, I think, this morning.
Oh my God, this was incredible.
So we got a lot of information.
We could honestly talk all day, but you've got a job to do.
I'm going to be talking all day. So yeah, you're right. It's going to be a good night. It's really a unique venue. This, as the fans will see.
Yeah.
Doing it from an amphitheater.
Yeah.
And I know they worked all night getting that site ready, because there were four. When I last talked over there, I did a production meeting Friday night. We were 4 hours behind schedule because it's had to be revamped to do the ring and
because there's a stage here, which is different.
Yeah, and some people thought we were going to put the ring on the stage, and they're not. That's where the announcers are going to be.
Okay.
The ring's going to be in that pit down there.
Okay, cool.
So we'll see. It should look really cool. I know also yesterday in the line of ticket sales, I think we have less than 200 tickets available.
Wow.
And a lot of them are sprinkled here, there, and yon, kind of a smattering. So the ticket sales are good. It'll look great. And of course, the show in Chicago is already sold out. So we're looking good. And they'll soon be announcing the TVs are booked for pretty much the rest of 2019.
Wow.
So those venues will be released. And it becomes a strategic thing. It's like, isn't it ironic that WWE decided to put their Evolve show on their network live against us? Coincidental? I don't.
Of course not.
We know it's not coincidental, folks.
Yeah.
So you say, well, why would they do that? Because they're the big dog in the yard, and they can. And that's a bully mentality. You take liberties, and fans just have to decide which one they want to watch. And thank God, through all the ways of replays and streaming this and that, you can watch both of them.
Yep.
On the same night.
That's true.
So I don't know what they expected, how they were going to hurt us with that deal, but they obviously didn't do it because of, we had nothing to do with AEW. Come on. That's where you get offended, when you know you're being zoomed.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Come on. So what are you afraid of our little operation? Oh, we're not.
It's a pissant company, I believe.
I heard it's pissant company.
Yeah.
Well, that pissant money's sure good.
That's a great way to end it. Jim, thank you again.
Okay, buddy.
I really appreciate it.
All right, Chris.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Guys, wow. Thank you so much for watching this entire video and for sitting with me at the learning tree that is Jim Ross. If you've watched this long and you haven't subscribed yet, please. I mean, it's right down there. I just got this awesome new graphic made, sound effect and all. If that doesn't make you want to subscribe, I don't know what will. But seriously, that was an incredible conversation. It was so great to be able to listen to Jim Ross tell those amazing stories. I could have talked to him all day, but he had a hard out of 11 a.m. It's the morning of Fight for the Fallen as we record this right now. We're in Jacksonville, and he had to get out at 11 o'clock, so we had to end things there, although I'm sure we could have talked about a whole bunch of other things. So awesome to hear his stories about things that happened in the past, WCW, Owen Hart, Chris Benoit, Mick Foley, all those great stories. Scouting The Rock, how cool is that? Also really cool to hear what he thinks the AEW can be, where they are right now and where they're going to be in 3 years when his contract's up, and hopefully they renew his contract. Jim Ross could seriously do this forever, and he's the voice of my childhood, the soundtrack to my childhood, the soundtrack to yours as well. So like I said there at the end of the interview, a big thank you on behalf of all of us for the memories. And it's interesting to hear his take on WWE and AEW, comparing it to the XFL and the NFL. And as of right now, in 2019, he has a point. Maybe if we revisit this discussion in 2, 3, 5, 10 years, whatever it happens to be, it might be a different discussion. So every time I do this in a hotel room, I show you the view. So we're in Jacksonville, and here you go. There's not much to show you. We're facing the opposite way of where the arena is. Where we're doing this, where they're doing Fight for the Fallen is at a place called Daly's Place, which is actually right next to TIAA Bank Field, which is where the Jacksonville Jaguars play. It's actually on the other side of the hotel. But if you're watching Fight for the Fallen, you'll see it. You'll see exactly the setup that he was talking about. And thank you again. This is the new collar and elbow shirt. I know you guys will comment on that. And if you want to check this out or buy one, use my code CVV10. The link's in the description to get that. So guys, thank you. You're awesome. And you've been asking how many interviews have I done this year? I believe this is number 58. So we crushed that specific goal of 50 interviews in 2019. So the new goal now is 200 interviews. 200, geez, that was rather ambitious. 100 interviews by the end of 2019. So thank you guys so much for the support. And there'll be more from Fight for the Fallen coming up all weekend long.